Hi guys, this is your girl Wakeji Kamore and welcome to Reflections by Wakeji Kamore. Today we are going to be looking at Psalms chapter 71. I really do hope that you have engaged with the word of God, that you have paused this recording or even just read this chapter before coming to listen to this, because I will not be reading it word for word as it is a bit lengthy, and I really do want to keep these Bible summaries as short as possible. So I'm just going to go straight to giving the summary of the chapter and then giving that which I have learned from this chapter. So first, this chapter 71, does not necessarily specify who has written it, but this unidentified author of Psalms 71 is seemingly old, or rather he's getting old, and he's writing from a perspective of an old man who needs God's help. He prayed that God would be his refuge and that he needed a fortress because of the cruel and unjust men that surrounded him. The psalmist wrote that God had been his hope in the years of his youth, and God was still his hope as he aged. The writer asked God not to forsake him in his old age. The psalmist had been strong in his youth, but his strength was spent through the years of his life. And so his enemies assumed that God's strength was no longer with him. And now that he was weak, they thought they could pounce on him and take him down. So he asked God to fight for him. And while God was fighting for him, he would apply his remaining strength to worship and tell others about God's greatness. Specifically, he looked forward to being able to share his knowledge of God with the next generation. I like that. I like the fact that he really wanted to share his knowledge of God with the next generation. So one of the things that we can learn from this psalm is that faith is not just for the old. We've read other psalms from the old weak men expressing their trust in God. And we've read more psalms from strong young men, especially David, expressing his trust in God. So the psalms are absolutely clear that faith in God is also for the young. It's not just for the old people. The only reason a person would not rely on God as much as they did when they were young is that sometimes when they're older, they probably feel like, me, I know it all, me, I know it all. And the only reason why when you're younger, you wouldn't rely on God is simply because of pride or stupidity. When you're younger, your physical strength and mental insight can tempt you to believe that you are able to win this battle on your own. You're able to do this life by your own. But in Ephesians chapter 6 verse 12, Paul warns us that our battles are against rulers, against the authorities, and against the cosmic powers over this present darkness, against the spiritual forces of evil in the heavenly places. So you're not winning that battle without God. You honestly think because you're young, because you have hot blood, you honestly think you can win a battle against spiritual forces of evil? You think you can win a battle against the darkness because you're winning? You are not winning that battle without God. And a whole army of strong young men without God cannot win that battle. As a matter of fact, it is better to have an army of 1,000 old men who fight in the strength of God than 100,000 young men who fight under the delusion of youthful strength. So don't be delusional. And because you're young, you think you don't need God. Or because you're old, you think you're too wise now, you don't need God. You need God, because for as long as you're living huku chini, I feel like saying it how we say it in Kikuyu. So long as you're living mohuro wariwa, you will still need God, because you're fighting against spiritual powers. You're fighting against spiritual evil in the spiritual realm. So you can't win that without God. So don't allow yourself to think that because you're youthful, because you have strength, don't make that make you think, God, what kind of English is this I'm speaking? Don't allow your youthful strength to make you think that you don't need God. Faith is for the young. Faith is for the old. Faith is for the strong. And faith is for the weak. We all need Jesus. We all need God. We all need God to come and fight our battles. We all need God. It doesn't matter whether you're poor or rich, whether you're weak or strong, whether you're old or young. We all need God. Because the battles we fight are not physical battles. They are spiritual battles. Thank you so much for listening, and see you next week.